John, can we get a deal? And what's your base case now?
Well, it's an understatement here, Yvonne, but we all got caught by surprise. Now, usually these last few OPEC meetings, we've been surprised, blindsided, but it's usually come from Minister Abdulaziz bin Salman. The difference here now is it's from the UAE. We've been in the custom of, basically looking at the OPEC Plus group as kind of a de facto duopoly where the Saudis huddle with the Russians, they work out a policy, they set quotas, and then everybody else falls into line. And clearly that hasn't happened here. The UAE caught everyone by surprise. And now we're all back to the drawing board, new scenarios, what's going to happen. They are going to be, regrouping here. And that's caught everybody, off guard. And it means that we're going to have to come up with a new set of quotas, allowances. And this is not what we expected. This 400,000 barrel restoration was actually seen as supportive. That's why the markets ended up over $75. But if there is no deal, ironically, that becomes even more bullish. And we start to see fractures in the cartel. Are other countries going to insist on special treatment? I mean, all kinds of scenarios out there.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned how the UAE, it's quite rare for them to actually voice something against what you're hearing from the likes of the Saudis and the Russians. How do you think they're going to get the math right then, John? Who's likely to back down?
Well, I don't see anybody blinking here, and let's put it in context. The UAE, just in the last few months, has kind of embarked on, they've blazed new trails. They launched the ICE futures Abu Dhabi Murban crude oil futures index a few months ago, and part of that was they abandoned the OPEC destination-based pricing system. It used to be most of the GCC, major Gulf Coast producers, they'll price their crude depending on destination. If it goes to Europe, it's priced on Brent. If it goes in the US, it's the sour crude index. If it goes into Asia, it's Oman, Dubai. But with the launch of this new crude futures, they threw that out. They've got an ambitious plan to boost their domestic output and their exports. They've recruited a top trading team. So I see them embarking on a new direction, and they could potentially become, well, they are becoming a disruptive force within the group now, a force to be reckoned with.
John, more broadly, though, you still are very bullish, and this moves towards the reopening theme as well. What are the big risks, though, here? And does it lie on the fact that we continue to see concerns about the pandemic and these variants?
Well, the pandemic is like this persistent wild card, but after a year and a half, we've learned how to roll with the punches. A headline comes out, a reinfection, a Delta virus. And then before that's even out, then you hear that the Moderna virus is set up to deal with it. We're used to adapting and adjusting, but the demand recovery seems in place. There could be a few glitches as we restore travel, as we restore oil demand. On the supply side, I can really kind of downplay the threats. There's talk about there's 5.8 million barrels a day of spare capacity that's locked in there, ready to hit the market, but it's concentrated in strong hands, namely the Saudis. I don't think Russia has much spare capacity. So I don't see that being a threat, but probably the biggest, Iran also is the other wild card here. They've just had their election. Ibrahim Raisi has been elected, the hardliner is in there, but he'll take his cue from the supreme leader. And eventually there will be a deal, but I think the question of timing, we'll probably see up to 500,000 barrels a day coming from Iran before the end of the year as sanctions get rolled back and we restore the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. But I see all this kind of taking place further down the road. I don't see the supply side disrupting it, unless there's some major catastrophic wrinkle in the pandemic that sends us back into lockdowns. I think we're still on course to test $80 a barrel at some point in the next few months.
All right, I was going to ask you where you saw prices move. We're looking here at the WTI Brent spread narrowing as well. Is it unlikely that WTI takes the lead over Brent here?
That would be rare. The WTI, traditionally that trades at a discount to Brent. At one point, there was a huge discount when you had the surge in U.S. domestic output with limited infrastructure to export it. But WTI, the Cushing, Oklahoma delivery point is a landlocked benchmark 600 miles from the ocean, from the U.S. Gulf Coast, whereas in contrast, Brent, you've got a waterborne benchmark, 5 different fields, all within a few days sailing times of the major Northwest European markets. You always expect that location, that liquidity, that proximity to markets to garner a premium. So I would not expect to see WTI surge over Brent. Highly unlikely.